Welcome to our Gifts of God program, Sunday Talk. We're so happy to have you with us, and we look forward so much to this weekend. We have mantra breathing on Saturday, and we have the talk on Sunday. So, as you know, I never quite know what I'm going to talk about before I talk about it, but it always seems to come forth when it's time. And I noticed that my teacher, Tara Singh, is coming through me a lot more than usual, even in the podcasts, because I started making the podcasts not alone in the sense that no one else is there, but alone in the sense that Sandra and I were making them all along, and Sandra needed a break from that. And often I realized that one of the reasons that the podcast didn't congeal on that day was because she had other things to do which were equally important, and I was kind of waiting around for her to do the podcast. And then, it'd be 8:00 at night, and then it's too late, and we have other things. So I've decided to be autonomous on the podcast, and it's not dependent on her being available. So I can make it whenever I want to make it. And I think this is going to work out for me better, especially in this last couple of months of this year where we're trying to complete the text. We still have 3 or 4 chapters left, and it's going to take my all to get through that because each chapter has about 10 sections. So I need to stay focused on that to get the text finished by the end of the year. So I've decided to do a monologue, although it's not really a monologue. And I think that'll be more regular. So watch your inbox every day, and I think I'll be able to keep up with that. So today, I don't know what came over me, but, here I am in front of our Divine Mother altar, all right? And, I know what came over me. This section that we talked about today was about the borderland. The name of the section was called the borderland. And what it was saying quite clearly was that in this dimension where we're in this physical body and we have perception, we have sight, we have smell, we have hearing, we have taste, we have touching, and that's the world of perception. That's still a borderland before you enter into what the Course would call knowledge or truth. And the Course would distinguish that, or even heaven. It would say that heaven is a state beyond perception. Knowledge is a state of being beyond perception. It doesn't rely on perception. So that this realm we exist in right now is a borderland. It's like in mythology, the Elysian fields are this beautiful place that you go to that's just before entering into the gate of heaven, right? And it itself is a very beautiful place. And the Course would probably define that as the atonement or the forgiven world. We're still using perception, right? But we've removed all of our guilt, we've removed all of our fear, we've removed all of our attack thoughts, grievances, doubts, pains, sufferings. We've forgiven all of that, that duality that most of us live in, of pain and pleasure, and we feel good and we feel bad. Well, we've forgiven that whole dichotomy, and we're in this forgiven state, or this state of atonement, okay? This state of atonement. And that's what the borderland is, and that's where we are, and that's where the work that we do is to take place. In fact, the miracles happen there, in this world of illusion. And it is an illusion in the sense that it could be this and it could be that, and you have a decision to make, you have a choice to make. In the heaven state, it says there's no choices to make. There's no opposites. There's no decision to make. There's peace and joy and nothing else. And why would you think you need to make a choice there? You don't. You're already there. But in the ego state of this borderland, there is a choice to make. Heaven is the decision I must make. That's the lesson, right? So we have to decide to move in that direction. We have to decide to let forgiveness rest upon all things, including ourselves first, but everything else, all people in our life, all things in our life, all situations in our life. It's important to go through that process of forgiving everyone. In fact, that's the work we have to do, and that's the work that is sometimes not so easy to do, especially if we've been attacked or taken advantage of or any of those things, you know. So we all see we have the work to do, but that's the world of perception, and we're all trying to get to this forgiven world. Well, with that in mind, and we sit at this altar to the Divine Mother. And by the way, the altar is the ultimate borderland. It's the ultimate place, or it's the ultimate springboard into which you're going to heaven, but it's like the last step, right? When you make it to the altar, you make it to that place where the altar is the atonement. And when you're sitting in front of it, it's like you've committed to forgiving everything. You've committed to bringing all of your illusions to the feet of truth, to have them dissolved, to have them absolved, to have them erased. So the altar is probably the holiest place we can go to in this dimension. And the action of the altar is to not only absolve us of all the mistakes we've made in life, but actually erase the mistakes so that they're not even there, you know? It's like, to see that all the mistakes we made were just projections of a bad movie that we made up. And once we turn off the projector, there's no movie anymore, right? So the altar is the ultimate turning off of the projector. And that's why we sit in front of it. And that's why we receive energy, insight, clarity, action of healing. The action of healing happens at the altar. It's that borderland before, I suppose, we totally leave this dimension of physicality and go into the light, where there's no distinguishing, you know, it's all one bliss, you know, all one bliss. But that's not the work we have to do now. The work we have to do now is accepting the atonement, going to the altar, laying down our errors in front of the altar, asking for forgiveness to rest upon us, and being willing to let forgiveness from our side rest upon all those people in our life, especially the ones we don't like, which there could be many. So it's work to do. It's work to do. And thank goodness we have the work to do and we're able to do it. So I don't know what possessed me to think about this when I was thinking about this altar and the borderland and the fact that our altar here, our main one, is dedicated to the Divine Mother. And then I got to thinking about that with the Course in Miracles and what would I say about the Divine Mother in the context of the Course in Miracles. Well, I looked up in the concordance. If you go online, the Course in Miracles online, it has a search bar and you can put a key phrase in there and it'll tell you every place in the Course that has that word. So I put in there mother, right? I just thought, well, I don't recall the word mother being used so much by the Course. So let me just stick that in there and see what it says. Well, it kind of confirmed what I thought. The word mother is only used one time in the whole Course in Miracles. One time, believe it or not. And I found that place actually. Let me see if here it is. Yeah. So this is a place in the teacher's manual where it's talking about clarification of terms. And this is the second one called the ego or the miracle. And this is the one place in the whole Course where the word mother is used. And I'll read this paragraph for you. What is a miracle? A miracle is a dream as well. But if you look at the aspects of this dream, you'll never question anymore. You see a kindly world extend before you as you walk in gentleness. Look at the helpers all along the way you travel, happy in the certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. And look an instant too on what you left behind at last and finally passed by. This was the ego, all the cruel hate, the need for vengeance and the cries of pain, the fear of dying and the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. This terrible mistake about yourself, the miracle corrects as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. There it is. It's like a loving mother singing her child to rest. Is not a song like this what you would hear? Would it not answer all you thought to ask and even make the question meaningless? So I read that and I was very much uplifted in thinking about the Divine Mother, because we give the Divine Mother a lot of attention. In fact, we just got back from our Colorado quest in which we went to the 9-day festival to the Divine Mother. It's called the Navratri, which is also what we do in India, and to a certain degree what we do in Bali, because the whole Bali quest ends at the Basaki temple, which is the temple to the Divine Mother on Mount Agung, right? And we go to the 7th level. So it's really impossible not to consider the Divine Mother while we're in this physical dimension, because the Divine Mother is the physical dimension, And in Vedic thought, they refer to this dimension as an illusion, in that it's constantly changing, constantly altering, going from this form to that form. It's like a state of physical manifestation that's always in a state of flux, right? So at some point we have to make peace with that change is the nature of the physical dimension. You know, we go from childhood to adulthood to old age. And now Sandra and I are giving our attention to conquering death, which we still will keep doing. But you see, most people are subject to those changes in the physical dimension. And therefore, because these states are not permanent, the Course would define that as an illusion. And even Vedic philosophers have called it that. But we have to make peace with it. The Course would call it the forgiven world. When the forgiven world is really ours, and we've totally done our inner work, and we've totally cleaned up all of our grievances. We don't have any more grievances. We don't have any more attack thoughts. We don't have any more fear thoughts. We don't have any more guilt thoughts. Okay? When we've truly done that, then even this dimension of physicality, which is always in a state of flux, is beautiful no matter what state of flux we're in, right? So we see the beauty of that. And then that's the ultimate grasp of the Divine Mother. You know, that yes, we're in this physical dimension that has all kinds of shifts and changes and, you know, complexities and this and that. But we've applied this kind of overall blanket of a loving mother who cares for her child and sings her child to sleep in all of our turmoils. Well, what could be better than that, you know? So I think we feel good about the fact that as students of the Course in Miracles, we're also students of Babaji and the Divine Mother, and that is a balance. You know, the Course can be very heady and erudite and kind of in the upper chakra, right? But the worship of the Divine Mother brings us into this space of where we exist, and the Course does too. Every time it talks about forgiveness, it's not talking about forgiveness in heaven. It's not talking about forgiveness in the upper dimensions of our highest reality. It's talking about forgiveness down here in the muck of physical life, right? And all those little bumps and bruises and, you know, actions that we've had and will have in this dimension is where the miracles need to be applied. And that's also the dimension of the Divine Mother. So I think it's very important that we have a grasp of this Divine Mother, even though we're students of the Course, even though the Course only mentions it once. And also look at the fact of who brought in the Christ consciousness. Well, it was a woman, of course. And who brought in the Christ? Well, it was a woman, of course. It was the Divine Mother, of course, who brought in the Christ consciousness to this plane of physical awareness. And that's the ultimate manifestation of the Divine Mother. It's, you know, the Divine Mother is going to produce a Jesus. The Divine Mother is going to produce a Shiva. The Divine Mother is going to produce a Ram. It's just that's the way it is. In order for those incarnations to come to these planes, they needed a very direct and holy relationship with the Divine Mother. And the Divine Mother made that possible. So there they are. They manifest their life, and they're here for those examples that humanity needs. What would we have done without Dr. Schucman? What would we have done in this period of human life without the Course in Miracles? So you see, the Divine Mother is very necessary to manifest. You know, like when you talk about spiritual dimensions, at the level of knowledge and light that the Course refers to when it talks about heaven, you're getting into non-physical dimensions. And you don't so much need the Divine Mother there, but where we are here, we absolutely need the Divine Mother's love, and we absolutely need an awareness of what that full reality of the Divine Mother is. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. And it was also why I got together with Sandra Ray. When I left my old life behind and my work with Tara Singh was finished, at least finished in the body, right, in the physical dimensions. It's never done, and my relationship goes on with him, but my relationship in the body with him ended in 2006. And then I got with Sandra in late 2007, 2008. And I realized right off the bat, and it's hard not to when you're around Sandra Ray, that the Divine Mother is the paramount focus of the work, the breath work. Because we have this dimension to clean up, It says heaven's the decision I must make, but where do you make that decision? Where and when do you make that decision? Well, you make that decision in hell. Your own personal hell is where you need the decision for heaven. So it's not like a decision you make when you're in heaven. Once you're in heaven, there's no decision to make. The decision to make is when you've made the mistakes and you've made the errors and you've made the misperceptions, and those are causing you pain and suffering, and you want to get out of the pain and suffering. So the decision to move towards heaven is in that dimension. And there is where you need the Divine Mother, because she's in this dimension. Your very breath is the breath of the Divine Mother. Your very body is the body of the Divine Mother. So you got to clean that up and get it lined up with the heaven order. And in order to do that, you have to make a decision. And the Course calls those decisions miracles. So I feel that the Divine Mother has led me to this work with Sandra, and I was clear about that from the very beginning. And I think people like Tara Singh were too. Like Dr. Shukman was his teacher after 25, 30 years of tutelage with Krishnamurti. Now, if you can imagine having that close of a relationship with a true teacher, and then at sort of the close of that, getting a whole new teacher, right? You'd already been taken through all the steps, right? And then all of a sudden you blunder in this thing called A Course in Miracles, and your teacher is now Dr. Shukman, who's like the Divine Mother incarnate, and now she's going to be your guide. Well, I think that in that regard, Tara Singh surrendered to the Divine Mother. And that was a reality for him. And she guided him and, directed him in basically the next 25 years of his life. What was he going to do with it in presenting the Course in Miracles to the public? Because she didn't have that role. It had to be someone else. So that rested on him, and he could surrender totally to her. And so, in my opinion, he did have that period where he had surrendered to the Divine Mother. And then when I met Sandra, I did the same. And the blessings have come through that surrender. And I recognize that. So I wanted to share a little bit, because when we first got together, it wasn't, I think in a couple of years, we started going to Bali. I think it was 2010. We were together in 2008, and our first trip to Bali was 2010. And at that juncture in my life, I became really certain about the Divine Mother, and Bali kind of awakened my awareness to that. And I started writing these odes to the Divine Mother in a leather-bound book. I would write these one-page entries about whatever that I saw that related to my experience of the Divine Mother. So that started in Bali, and it started mainly after I had seen the Balinese dance. And if ever you've seen that, you know what I mean. These dances are learned by small children, mostly girls, when they're like 4 years old. So by the time they're like 8 years old, they're masters of the dance. And they present these dances to you in the most sensual and exotic way. And maybe they're like not even 10 years old yet, right? So you're witnessing this incredible art by these small beings to the perfection you've never seen anything before, right? So it's like the innocence, the grace, the beauty of the Divine Mother coming through these little people, right? And they're right in front of you, and they're just totally engulfing you in ecstasy. And this is what I experienced the first time in Bali. And I was so moved, I started writing some, I don't know if I'd call them poems, but they're kind of like prose poems, I call them. I start at the top of the page and I write about something, and it just sort of leads me down. And then by the time I'm at the bottom of the page, the complete thought is there and it's finished. So I write good for one page, boom, 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 get to the bottom, it's done. Well, I started writing these things about this dance, and I wrote like 10 of them, right? I had them in the book, journal. And then after the 10 and we left Bali, I noticed that my relationship with the physical universe was much more attuned, much more sensitive, much more aware, much more sensitive, And I would see things, could be like a coffee cup, or it could be the way the light was coming through the Venetian blind and lighting up the carpet. I would see these moments where there was such beauty. Those became my subjects for the odes to the Divine Mother, right? So, and I never knew where this would happen. I could be sitting in Nordstrom's department store while Sandra is on a shopping spree, and I'd be sitting there just sort of waiting for her to do her shopping gig, right? And something would be beautiful, and I would just start writing about it, sitting there waiting for her. Or we would be in a Starbucks coffee shop, and I would just start writing an ode about the people I saw in there. And these became the odes to the Divine Mother, right? So that's kind of how the odes to the Divine Mother happened. And basically what it was is I was looking on a forgiven world. I didn't so much put it together with the Course in the beginning, but and whenever you see beauty to that degree, the harmony, the balance, the color, the light, the relationships, and you perceive that beauty, and it could be in art, it could be in just a scene that you're perceiving, but it's beauty, it's joy, it's it's elation, right? Whenever you see that, you can bet you're in contact with this best of the Divine Mother, because that's the dimension we're maneuvering in, right? And God wants us to see beauty. God wants us to achieve happiness and joy in this dimension. And so, well, where would we see it? It'd be through these encounters with our physical dimension. And that would be what Christ would call the forgiven world. And that's where the beauty can be given us. So this was kind of what I did. I wrote these odes for like 3 or 4 years in this book. And then I had a friend that helped me get it all together. And we published that book as the Odes to the Divine Mother. And I just wanted to read a couple of those to you today. And actually, I think I'm gonna, wait a minute. I'm gonna do a screenshot on this because I think you would enjoy seeing this. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Yep, there we go. Share. Those are Sondere's feet on our wedding day. And it's a beautiful picture. She has henna. You know, they paint, when you get married in India, the ladies get together and the men get together, right? So the ladies paint this henna on the feet and the hands of the bride. And those are Sondere's feet on her wedding day. And so this ode was to Sondere's feet. And the title is I Am at Your Feet, which could also be the Divine Mother's feet. I am at your feet, forever at your feet. To me, that is higher than Mount Everest. You are beyond the stars. Your toes are the very galaxies I cannot comprehend. To touch them is to rise higher than I have ever gone. To leave this world a moment in my contemplation of you is to travel light years past my familiar places, past the planets of this solar system, past my place on earth in this small body of flesh and bone, into another realm of divine perfection. I cannot fathom you, but nonetheless, my certainty grows of your omnipresent existence in everything I can sense and in everything so far beyond what I can sense. Even my thought falls short of conceiving your immensity. I'm silenced for a while in gratitude, knowing your tender loving care surrounds me in all time and space. Your caresses upon my soul reassure my inner child, walking ahead of you, that my mother will always be there, just a half step behind me, to guide my steps and cushion any fall. O Mother, I sing my praises to you as I enter into a new life. Purge me of all guile. Make me your servant more and more. Come into me completely and inspire my life to be an action of beauty for you. Well, that was my first ode that I wrote after this experience in Bali. And it was around the time we got married. And then I just kept writing odes and painting the Divine Mother. Let me see if this one I wrote in Estonia. Let me see if I can find it. It's called Mother of Night. Yeah, here we go. So when I was in Estonia is a beautiful country. And it's interesting that the abbreviation for Estonia is EST, right? And in Latin, EST means being. It's like the highest word, being, EST. So I find that the Estonians are very spiritually inclined. Now, they don't want to be confined to any religion or anything like that. They're totally free spirits. They're like they're like totally in connection with the Divine Mother, right? But this freedom that the Estonians have is beautiful, and their colors on their flag are blue, black, and white. So that's why I painted this Divine Mother painting, and I use Amma as my model, but I used blue, black, and white in this painting. And it's kind of like a night, like Estonia is up near the Arctic Circle. So in the winters, they have those long nights, like up in the Arctic Circle. And in the summer, they have these long days. It doesn't even get dark till like midnight, right? So this is my ode to Estonia and the goddess of night. Goddess of night, you come out of blackness and blanket my world in shade and bring your 1,000 things that I love into the quiet stillness of sleep. Yet I am up in my restless rustle of somnambulism. That's like sleepwalking. Dimly lit from below, the bronze bust on its base casts its eerie shadow into the murky nature of my late hour observances. We have this Indian bust of an Indian god, and it's on a sculpture pedestal, and underneath it has a light. So at night, this light is shining on this bust, and it's very eerie. It's like everything else in the room is dark, but this Indian god in the corner is lit up from below, and it's like, that's what I'm referring to. Dimly lit from below, the bronze bust on its base casts its eerie shadow into the murky nature of my late hour observances. I feel the soft woolen fibers of the oriental carpet under my feet as I move through the plush pillows of my divan, that's our couch, and plop myself down to meet my midnight meditations. I hear this hush of you, my mother of the dark zones, which comes over me in this extended pause of my after hours. I am the listener to an absence of my thought. It sings to me of peace and quiet when the activity of my day all but ceases, and the ever still mind, still nature of your 1,000 things comes rushing into me all at once. A crescendo of quietude fills my mind with the presence of each object that provides a note in the unspoken song of your soundless nocturne. I tune myself to the vibration of darkness and feel a deep abiding gratitude arise in me. Goddess of night, you envelop the world in a peace beyond my understanding. I give my eternal thanks for this vision of holiness in the darkened house of a silent night. In this, my inaudible dedication. So I wrote these things. I can hardly believe now I did it. There's like 365 odes. and some of them are quite remarkable, especially the ones about immortality. I don't think I could do it again. It's like somebody asked Bob Dylan about some of his early songs, and he said, oh, how did I ever do that? I could probably never do that again. It's like, wow, it just sort of came out of you in some supernatural connection you had with other forces, right? And that's what came out of me when I first got together with Sandra. Yeah, and just remind us that it says, the miracle corrects as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. Is not a song like this what you would hear? Well, I think that's the song we want to hear. We want to hear peace and joy, right? We want to hear a forgiven world. We want to hear an easy life, one of beauty, one of trust, one of service, one of relationships, holy relationships around us. And what a wonderful dance that would be. And I think we're all doing that in this program, this Gifts of God program. We all place those holy relationships in the first place in our life. And that's the source of our joy, and that's the source of our work, our daily work. And that's what we're after. We've gone along the path long enough to know we need our brother along with us to go through the door to heaven, right? We need our brother there. We can't do it alone. There's a wonderful line somewhere, I think it's in the workbook. No one is crucified alone, and no one enters heaven by themselves. So just remember that. If you're going to go through the door to heaven, you got to take some friends with you, or they won't let you in. It's not a solitary journey. Yeah. The Course is very benevolent, It knows we're here and a lot can go wrong in this dimension. A lot of pain and suffering can happen. And I think we've all experienced that. We've all had our trials and tribulations in life. And they were lessons God would have us learn. And hopefully we've learned them. And the ultimate lesson is to forgive them and let them go, right? And return to peace and return to quiet and return to gratitude, return to happiness, return to love, if you want to say it in that absolute way. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. So gratitude and love is our main objective. And whatever dramas come and go, just that. They come and they go. They come and they go. And let them go. Yeah, let them go. Life is too short for commiserating. Yeah. God's peace and joy are mine. Well, what's that mean? That means just what it says. God's peace and joy are mine. So if you're not in peace and joy, you've made up an alternative that's not God's peace and joy. It's your own ego's conundrum. And that's not reality. That's not reality. That's illusion. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but about a week ago, we watched this very interesting documentary drama about Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor Roosevelt, of course, you know, she was the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who got America through the Depression and then World War II, et cetera, et cetera. And then he died during the World War II, towards the end. And then Eleanor Roosevelt had to kind of pick herself up and decide what she was going to do for the rest of her life. So what finally unfolded was she became a representative of the USA at the newly formed United Nations. And her job that she took on was to formulate this International Declaration of Human Rights and have it ratified by all these countries that were in the United Nations. And early on, there was a lot of opposition, even from her own delegates who were there with her from the US, right? And she was there with her grandson in Paris, and she was expressing her concerns to her grandson. And her grandson says, "Oh, Grandma, don't worry, there's nothing to fear." And it sounded just like the Course in Miracles, you know, lesson 48, there's nothing to fear. And she said, "Oh, you sound just like your grandfather. You know, he used to tell me, fear is an illusion. Take the energy, the same energy that you apply to fear, and put it into confidence. And then wonderful things will happen," right? So that line, it was like pure Course in Miracles. Fear is an illusion. Take that energy that the ego musters up, right, to get all worked up. Take that same energy and apply it to confidence, which is the miracle, right? That's you're shifting your perception away from the fear onto confidence, onto some positive energy application. And then wonderful things will happen, which are miracles. Wonderful things will happen. Well, she applied that to this complicated writing of this human rights declaration that she had to get all the countries of the world to kind of agree with and get the language just right, right? And then it looked at the very end like she wasn't going to make it. They weren't going to pass it. And Russia was one of the countries that was standing in the way because they didn't want any reference to a creator or a god or anything like that. So she was afraid they were going to veto it, and then other countries would come along and follow suit and veto it. Well, because she was who she was, and she was very good at human contact and relationships. She'd gone to all the Russian parties and danced with the diplomats and drank their wine and ate their caviar. And they absolutely loved Eleanor Roosevelt, right? She had no issue with the Russians. They were just people like everybody else, right? So they absolutely loved Eleanor Roosevelt, even though they didn't approve of this thing on human rights. So what did they do when the vote came along? They didn't show up and vote it down. They abstained from the vote, which meant all the people that were for it showed up, and all the people that were against it didn't even show up to vote. So they just, because they loved Eleanor Roosevelt so much, they wouldn't oppose her. And they, even though they didn't agree, they just didn't come to vote it down, and the thing passed. Now tell me that's not a miracle, right? Because practically speaking, there were enough countries that didn't want it, that they could have voted it down, but because Russia abstained, all these other countries abstained too, and the thing got passed. And that was Eleanor Roosevelt. And she applied the energy of fear into the energy of confidence, and wonderful things happened. So I'm going to leave you with that. And we've got the Course in Miracles as a guide. We will always have it, and it will always tell us the truth, and it will always get us out of fear into confidence, and then wonderful things will happen. And that's all that will happen, wonderful things. So God bless you. Thank you for coming. It was wonderful to spend this time with you. Thank you.